Get ready for a game changer. Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sarah will bring you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Now here's your host, Sarah Westall.
Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall, and you're listening to Conscious Business Radio on the Transformation Talk Radio Network. Africa, as a lot of people know, and other third world countries are struggling with corruption. A lot of what keeps them from developing into a first world nation is the corruption that is occurring everywhere, whether it's just lack of records or government officials that are corrupt, or it's the local chiefs. There's all sorts of issues there in Africa. And one of the big problems that they're finding is the land that's there is not recorded. Africa has the most arable land in the world, meaning land that can be developed for crops. And as such, a lot of big international investors and foreign investors are coming in and wanting to use that land for purposes of development. But what they're finding is that they're either A, doing land grabs and just taking and hurting a lot of the people that are there, or they're doing, somebody who owns it will sell it twice to somebody, and then they end up being in the courts for a long time, and it ends up being unresolved and costing everybody a ton of money. So as part of that, Africa is having a hard time developing properly, getting outside investors in, because a lot of investors don't want to mess around with that. Or the big international investors will come in and just take land. And when they take land, that completely disrupts the local communities. There's unequal power relations between governments and foreign investors. It creates food insecurity, all sorts of issues that are going on. And there is a company called Bitland that is using blockchain technology, the stuff that you hear about for Bitcoins, and they're applying it to be able to record and survey and record deeds of land and really clean up the corruption that's going on with land in Africa. And they have their first site that they're working on is in Ghana. And Ghana is not as corrupt as others, and the government is more willing to work with them. So they've come into Ghana and they're setting this up. And it should be a really good prototype for going into other countries as well, as other countries see how well this works and how it brings more prosperity to everyone. And Bitland, the name of the company, is winning all sorts of awards. They recently received the 2016 Net Expo Award, which identifies 10 startups around the world for innovative technology. So they are really on the move. A lot of big media outlets are starting to pay attention to them. And we have Elliot Hedman, who's the Chief Operating Officer there, to come on to the show and talk to us about what they have going on, how they're using blockchain, how it works, and what problems they're trying to solve in Africa. And then after we do that, we'll be speaking with Lou Altman. He is the CEO of Next Level, and he's going to be talking about running a business backwards, what that means and how that can help you avoid a lot of mistakes, and also how to have different techniques to build client retention over the long term. So we have a really good program lined up today. And now we're going to welcome Elliot Hedman to the program. Hi, Elliot. Welcome to the program.
How you doing there, Sarah? Thanks for having me.
Well, you guys have a really interesting thing that you're working on as far as with land ownership, and you're trying to resolve corruption with land ownership. Can you explain what corruption you're talking about?
Okay, well, in most systems, whether you're talking about, the industrialized world or in the third world, there's a lot of, there's a lot of shenanigans that go on with how people own their land or how it's reported. Okay, because as long as you have people in the system or bureaucracy that runs the system, whether we're talking about the average Joe that owns the land versus the local government versus someone's national government, there's a lot of holes to where, somebody could be, imparting their influence in a negative way, throughout that entire system.
So
that's very, 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 go ahead.
Give me an example.
Like right now, for our business, our pilot program is going on in Ghana. Okay? And then a lot of the African countries, they operate on a totally different way of owning land and then leasing land and or renting land than we would here in the United States. Very few individuals are actually landowners there. Most of the land, I want to say close to about 79 to 80% of the land is owned by what they call the stool, which is your local chief. So that local level actually owns most of the land. Okay?
Okay.
The other 10% to 12% is owned by what you consider their federal government, which leaves a tiny little sliver to what we would consider as the common man. Now, the corruption portion comes into play because, sometimes those local leaders will double deal, especially when it comes to foreign owners of land. Like, if, we were a company, we wanted to invest in, a parcel of land, whether or not we wanted to put a house on it, whether we wanted to do a shopping mall or anything, they'll sell that land twice.
Oh, and then what happens?
Or they get their money, and then everybody else is kind of just left to, fight the dispute, whether it is within their legal system or in their customary system. And that's an issue because, go ahead.
It's a mess.
Yes, it's an absolute mess. So what we can do, and the idea behind Bitland is what we're doing, is we're taking just a little bit of technology that already exists right now. Granted, it's cutting-edge technology relatively, and all we're doing is creating a ledger, an immutable, transparent ledger that once that document is inputted into the system and signed by all three parties, it becomes immutable and you can't change it, and it's always there.
How does that differ from just a database that you can't alter? How does that differ from just a database that you can't alter?
Very much, it's all about how it's permissioned. Because most databases now, whether it's a digital registry or not, there's a central authority that adjudicates everything that goes into or out of that system and handles those permissions. When you use what we consider as blockchain technology, that there is no central authority. The central authority is completely decentralized. So everybody who is a part of the system propagates the system itself. So the government can't just go in and change a record at a whim. Like, you could do that in the United States. Like, if they so chose to, the powers that be could, like, you know what, we're changing this right now. And they don't have to tell you.
Does that happen in the United States? Do we have problems where someone just loses their land?
Oh, yeah. Those disputes happen all the time. Not as egregious and not to the effect that it can happen, in some of these other countries where they don't have that infrastructure. Because we relatively have, we have strong land administration. And these other countries, they have land issues, land disputes, but then their federal or national governments have weak land administration. Therefore, they can enforce relatively nothing. At least for us, if there is that dispute, we can go to court and hash it out. Granted, we have to pay the court money to make sure things happen, but we still have that. We have that option. In some of these countries, they do not.
Well, so your first country that you're working in is Ghana, and is Ghana?
That is correct.
Now, are they one of the worst countries in in Africa?
No, they're not. Like, Ghana's actually, they sit on what we would consider like a cut above most. But it's where we can do, impart the most efficiency to almost carry them over a hump to becoming what, not necessarily a world power, but on the world stage economically.
So you're getting
one of the things.
The government's working with you better over there, and you don't have a lot of obstruction when it comes to Ghana.
Correct.
And that makes that makes a huge difference.
It does. And we've taken time, like, Bitland as a thing, we've been around for 2 years now, but we're just starting to make the noise now because we've made those inroads and we've gotten those connections and we've been in the local communities there. So we have to make sure that this is a country or a place that actually wants a system like this, instead of building it as you're going and then trying to make those relationships. It works better for everyone if everyone's in the know that this could possibly or is coming. And that's worked in our favor.
Well, how does your technology work? How does blockchain work to solve the problem?
Well, like I said, it's kind of new, but, a lot of people have read on the news. It's a big thing right now is what, we've all heard of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And now the technology that is behind Bitcoin, which is just a transparent, immutable, decentralized ledger, that is what powers what Bitland and what a lot of these, other companies like ours are trying to do. We're taking that concept and then we're applying that to what we call legacy systems, like the paper systems or a strict permission, centralized database. Because you can't get to our information. It's pretty much behind lock and key, which is secured not just because you have triple vaulted walls because there's a data center, like in San Antonio or in Houston. It is propagated by everyone on the network itself.
Well, how do you know that it can't be hacked, though?
Because it's in the nature of the beast that it cannot be, because all it is data put on the ledger.
Well, can't they go into the ledger and change it? Can a hacker?
No.
Why?
Because that's the beauty of the smart contract, and that's what we call them, or smart contracts, is that you cannot change them. The only way that they're changed is that you have to make another one. You have to make what we would consider another transaction for something to change.
Okay, so basically the original can't be changed. You have to create a new one. Well, can a hacker create a new one?
No, because within our system, it takes three parties to agree to create that contract. You need the end user, what would we consider the end user. So you're, say, the property holder, within the Bitland system. Then the next one, as it goes up the chain, that would be the local leadership. So your chief, that person has to sign off. And then finally, the federal government, or the national government, would be the third part that has to sign off.
Could a group of hackers just act like they're each party?
Nope.
Why?
They cannot, because everybody has a specific personal, you have your own hash code. And that can't be changed. The only way that somebody could get that is if you had it written down on paper or you showed it to them.
And it's not like a password where you could guess what it was?
Nope.
Okay. So, how are you planning on building out the infrastructure to make this work, especially there? I mean, where are you getting the funds?
Well, that's cool. I mean, we just finished, I want to say last month, within the crypto space, we do crowdsourcing, and we do crowdfunding. So we created a digital token, that would be considered something like a Bitcoin or something like Ether from Ethereum. It's our token, it's our coin. And then we distributed that in a crowdsourcing manner, as in we took in money and we handed the token.
So you have enough now, do you have enough money now to build out the infrastructure for Ghana?
For right now, yes.
Excellent.
For right now,
so
yes.
what does this infrastructure, what is it? I mean, what do you need to run this?
Well, first things first is that we wanted to have education centers, because people have to have a centralized place to come to learn about what we're doing and to handle any kind of issues they have locally. So right now we're in the process of building our first Bitland Center, which will double as our offices here within the next 4 to 5 months, when some of us go down there and open up shop and make sure that things get done properly. You just need an internet connection. That's the beauty part of the situation.
Would you need servers?
But then obviously, say that again?
Do you need servers?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Like we would have to have internet, we would have to have servers, we would have to have power, access to clean water, obviously. And in some of those countries, those things could be issues. But that's part of what we do. This isn't just a blockchain or technological initiative. We want to bring all of those things, as we modulate and bring other, aspects of Bitland online.
No,
we bring people in.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the first step is getting people to sign up for the registry, which is just over the internet. And then we need the education portion. So we're going to need each city that we go into, or let's say each country that we go into, we're actually setting up, NGOs, non-government organizations, kind of like what we would consider just a non-profit organization.
Okay.
So the first one is already set up, and that's Bitland Ghana. So say we're already in talks with, maybe Nigeria wants this kind of solution, so we do Bitland Nigeria. Then we do Bitland Benin or Bitland USA, because each place we go into is going to have their own specific set of, challenges and requirements, with the law, with the people, with their traditions, histories, whatever, to make it work.
How do you see this helping the local community besides people selling their land to two different places? That was a good example. But how will it specifically help the people there?
Investment. One of the biggest problems with some of these countries, and the reason why, the money isn't pouring into areas to help that end user, or they can't grow their crops because they don't have the irrigation system that they need, or what have you, is because there's no confidence in those markets, in those real estate markets. So if you're an outside investor and you see that Ghana is the number one producer of cocoa on the face of the planet, right now that is true. Like, pretty much, all of our chocolate comes from there.
Yeah,
They also have one